Man, this is Deion Dawkins, man, and you're listening to The Scoop on owlscoop.com. You already know.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Scoop, owlscoop.com's weekly podcast. Owlscoop is the authority on Temple athletics. We're happy to have you back for another show. We are on to episode 30 of season 10. I'm your host, owlscoop.com editor John DiCarlo. Almost a full house this week. No Jason Nieves this week. That'll probably make Johnny happy. He is handling his podcasting director duties at WHIP Radio. But Johnny Zwislak is here. Our assistant editor, Kyle Gauss, is here. Colin Schofield and Ryan Mack. Guys, how we doing?
Doing good, John. Excited to be back for another episode.
Did you guys...
Fresh off an Eagles win, too.
Yeah.
I think that makes everyone happy.
Kyle was wearing his... You guys can't see this. Where did you get that? Did you order it? Did you go to like a rally house?
Meg went to Dick's. Meg went to Rally House, and Rally House had nothing. This was yesterday. Real quick, Meg's in line getting stuff at Dick's. The Dick's manager called a random Kansas City Dick's and was like, "How long's your guys' line?" And they were like, "It's just a normal day." He's like, "Ours is out the door," and hung up.
It's amazing.
It's like next level pettiness.
That's tremendous.
That's very funny.
We should refer to Kyle as Gaustradamus. He basically predicted this last week. He said,
I was the only one confident.
I was afraid to be that confident. When did you feel relaxed? I think we might have talked about this.
Devontae Smith bomb.
Yeah.
To go up, 31-0? Yeah, that was when I was like, okay, let's break out the victory cigar. I had to remember how to smoke a cigar. I hadn't smoked a cigar in 7 years. So I had to remember how to do that.
You smoked a cigar Sunday night?
Oh, yeah. Smoked a cigar, victory cigar, rewatched highlights. Not to go on too much of a tangent. You know what's a pet peeve of mine? And it was a pet peeve of mine before this, but now it's even more so. I don't know if you guys get the same TikTok videos that I get, but I get an algorithm where it's like Commanders fan 17, like, let me watch this game. And they pretend they're watching the game in real time. In reality, they're just watching a YouTube, like, condensed game. And then pretending like, oh, I can't believe Saquon did this. I can't believe Devontae Smith did that. It's cheap clicks. It upsets me every time. I fall for it every time.
I can't say I get Commanders fan, whatever, but
it's not a specific person. It's a whole genre. They watch the highlights and pretend they're reacting to it live. I'm like, this is coming.
I specifically get like this one Ravens fan on my TikTok that like will do anything to worship Lamar Jackson, and like and I got like a hate video from him about when Josh Allen won MVP and how like rigged it was.
I'm not on TikTok, so I can't relate to
that. Was a little weird that he didn't win MVP, even though he was first team All-Pro over Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And they're voted on by the same people.
Yes.
A little strange.
Ryan texted me during the game, Sunday at 7:41 p.m. How are you feeling about the game? Me, don't jinx it. Love you so much, but we got to stay locked in. Ryan, you're right. My apologies. Sunday, 9:58 p.m. Is now a good time? As if he's going to call me back. And I said, ha, I think so. And then the conversation just stopped after that.
I got a DM on Thursday from friend of the program, Pat Egan, saying, thank you for being the only one confident enough to say it with your chest. And I said, I'm sick of people tiptoeing around it. To be honest, John's just has too many years of disappointment, sports fandom disappointment. He's been in the desert too long. I'm still young. I'm spry. I'm optimistic. And here we are.
Pat's going to try to capitalize on his stickers again.
I will say I cried in 2018. Like I got like emotional in 2018. I tweeted this. I'm done with this underdog little brother mentality. Eagles are the best franchise in the AFC. It's been that way for the majority of my life. Let's start acting like it.
I teared up a little bit. I was like actively crying in 2018. People were like running up and down our street. A neighbor that I had only met a couple times before came over. Like I was outside. We hugged. My wife was like, who is that? It's like, that's Dave. Dave's a great guy.
How do you not know Dave?
Dave's a good dude. So
I said this to you before we started recording, but it just didn't. I didn't get him. I got emotional in 2018. This time it was just like, it didn't feel real because it was just like never a game. Like it was just kind of over. Like,
I know you guys have seen this a lot on social media. This is how Super Bowls used to be like for like the majority of the 80s. And it was like just like blowouts.
Crap out all those Bills Super Bowls.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Go Birds. We'll play a clip. I know, again, it's parts 2 and 3 of my conversation with Casey Keeler are for subscribers, but in case you missed it, we'd shared it on social media. We'll play a clip of Casey Keeler talking about his brief time with the Eagles, where he was trying out with them in 82 and 83. Some good stuff about how Wes Hopkins was one of the main reasons why he didn't make the team. The late, great Wes Hopkins, who was a hell of a safety. for those Buddy Ryan defenses. But yeah, fun time to be a Philly sports fan. Temple basketball, not as productive of a week. Both the men's and women's teams went a combined 1-3 last week, with the lone win coming for the women last Wednesday when Diane Richardson's team beat Memphis at the Leocore Center at their annual school day game. They are playing tonight, so by the time you guys listen to this, that game will already be over. But otherwise, the men's team went 0-2 in their losses at USF, at Memphis, both without Jamal Mashburn Jr. We'll talk about that. Casey Keeler has added another piece to his staff. It's a smart hire from Penn State staff. We'll get into that, get to all of your mailbag questions as well. The Scoop, as always, brought to you by Greenspan and Greenspan Injury Lawyers. If you've been injured while on the road or the highway and the crash was someone else's fault, the insurance company is not going to be on your side. You need us, Temple Law grads, who will fight hard to get the compensation that you deserve. We only get paid if we win, so in Pennsylvania or New York, call us today at 215-261-7359. That's 215-261-7359. And you can find them on the web at greenspans-law.com. Greenspans-law.com. On or around this date, Johnny, you can breathe a sigh of relief. Jason is not here. It's all you, buddy. It's the segment you were meant to have in life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is. And I do want to say I was actually able to see Jason before we started recording, and you said that today was going to be the day where he put out a statement saying he was going to let me do this on my own anyway. So this was going to happen regardless. So I don't want it to seem like I'm happy that Jason is not here. I'm just happy to be on the Scoop again.
You said that with just such confidence and vigor. It's
Don't
not
get
believable.
complacent.
Jay basically has he's on the injured list today with a bum ankle. This is your chance. Don't F it up. That's all I'm saying.
Thanks, man. I love your confidence in me.
I am confident in you, but iron sharpens iron. Again, we got to sharpen each other's tools here, buddy.
Johnny, you're going to do great.
I appreciate it, Ryan.
I got you.
Johnny's upset already.
All right, Colin. Oh, okay, but I also want to say this. I don't actually get upset.
Yeah,
at
nobody
Jason.
believes you. I know Kyle doesn't believe you. Kyle's
I don't. I'm
smirking
sorry,
right now.
I do it.
Nobody.
I do it for the bit. I don't think you understand that. I do it for the content. And
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah.
All
You
right.
definitely don't take the work home with you.
I don't. Every time I go back and edit this, I'm laughing because it's funny.
That might be the case now. If that's the case now, great. A year ago, that was not the case. I feel like
I didn't do this segment a year ago. What are we talking
I
about?
thought we were just talking about the Scoop in general.
Okay, well, the Scoop in
you took
general,
some
sure,
Scoop
maybe.
ribbing home with you.
Okay, maybe. I think I've come a long way since a year ago, though.
Yeah.
We hashed a lot of that out last week. All right.
Let's
We're
see if we
confident
can
in you.
get there
Go
with
ahead.
all around the
we
state.
gotta focus. Colin, you want to start with birthdays or events?
Let's do birthdays.
All right, we're going to move on to birthdays. We're going to be doing the date that this episode will come out, which is February 12th. For the first one, on February 12th, 1809, this former U.S. president was born in Kentucky. He's nicknamed the Rail Splitter, and he's known for being honest.
Abraham Lincoln.
Correct.
There we go.
Ryan.
He's
Good
born in
job.
Kentucky, and then he moved to Illinois. That's interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. That's why Johnny's he's a
What I'm doing,
Yeah.
I got to try.
I've
to
never-
he's stealing right now.
Exactly.
I've never heard of him referred to as the Rail Splitter, but
That's,
Neither have
it's
I.
because he worked in a factory when he was growing up
is
with.
that why he got so jacked and good at wrestling? He has that quote about I'm the big dog in this pack, and whoever wants
Yeah.
to take a shot.
I mean, I think so. I didn't see that on Britannica, but sure.
The rail splitter.
You
one.
gotta give away Britannica. Stop giving up that you get this off Britannica. Let people think that you are.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. You're right. I just figured we've referenced it a couple times now, so I thought it was okay. But you're right. I gotta act like I do extensive
Yeah,
research.
you're in the library. You're in the stacks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm
You're in the
spending-
stacks.
I'm
You're in the
I'm
card
working 2
catalog
weeks
right
ahead
now.
on
Dewey
this.
Decimal System, nothing to you. It's nothing.
Yeah.
Do you guys know the Dewey Decimal System?
Well, I do because I'm old.
I do not. I know of it. I don't know
I
it.
think I've heard of it. I don't know if I know what it is.
I remember it a little bit. Johnny, the Kentucky one, that's how I got it. The rail splitter one threw me off completely.
Really?
Yeah, like when
I was trying to
you-
throw stuff in that would throw you guys off.
You-
Yeah, I was like
Yeah.
an unscouted look right there. That was
Yeah.
good.
I tried my best.
Very good. He's like very strong out of the gate so far.
On February 12th, 1934, this American basketball player was born. He played with the Celtics.
Bill Russell?
Yes, I didn't even get to give the rest of my hints.
Oh, sorry.
That's insane. Moving on to the next one. On
You should have gotten that first, Ryan. As a,
yeah,
as
I'm actually
I was-
disappointed in you. That you didn't get
I-
that.
a Celticsman.
was thinking Bill Russell, and then you got it. I was like, yeah, this is gonna look really, really bad on my part right
Yes, it
now.
does.
I need to turn my fandom in. Sorry,
That's all right.
guys.
That's all right. I
Um,
wouldn't. I'd hold on to it.
On to the next one. On February 12th, 1809, this controversial biologist was born. His book from in 1859, The Origin of Species, first introduced the concept.
Charles Darwin.
Correct.
Mhm.
That is it
I like
for
when Kyle
birthdays.
seems like he's like put out by the answer. He's like, Charles Darwin, I got it.
I mean, that's like
I know it's
the guy you're gonna guess.
Yeah. It was good. It's good.
I honestly, I didn't know a hint to throw you guys off without it making it impossible. So
Blankism.
exactly.
Blankism.
That's
Yeah.
just gonna give it away.
Yeah.
Moving on to events. Although its decisive victory over the Spanish did not come until April at the Battle of Maipu, this South African country formally declared its independence from Spain on February 12th, 1818. It's on the east coast of South America. Or not east coast, west coast, sorry. I got it mixed up. West coast.
It's South America or
Colombia.
South Africa? Did you say
South
South
America. Did I say South
Oh,
Africa?
yeah, I thought you
You
said
said
South
South America.
South America.
Okay.
Colombia?
Wait, the West Coast you said?
West coast of South Africa.
Whoa.
Chile?
South America. Now you're messing me up. That's South
Yeah.
America.
Chile.
Correct. Chile.
Hmm.
Chile declared its independence from Spain in 1818. Before they actually won, they declared their independence. This is I'm using the around portion for the events for these next two because there aren't too many good events on February 12th. So on February 13 of 2000, the last iteration of this comic strip was published in the newspapers just hours after the death of the creator Charles Schulz.
Peanuts.
Correct. That's why I
You
was
were
humming.
humming. You were humming the Charlie Brown theme.
That's why I was humming
Yeah.
it earlier.
All right.
'Cause I was doing
Well,
this.
foreshadowing.
Exactly. I've done that a couple times now. Before we start recording the pod, I do some foreshadowing. I got to pick up on it.
I start paying attention more.
Exactly.
Hey, man.
For the last one, on February 14th, 1991, this psychological thriller was released in American theaters. It is widely regarded as a classic and won 5 Academy Awards. One of those
February
awards was
14th,
Picture.
1991.
correct. Anthony Hopkins was one of the
Silence of
actors.
the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs.
Correct.
Look at
Correct.
Ryan reaching back, getting that
And
one.
that was on or around this day.
I love that movie.
Ryan with his 90s knowledge.
I used to watch it.
You're
like,
watching
couple
Silence of the
times.
Lambs a lot.
Yeah.
How old were you?
17.
Oh,
I like that, and I like Taxi Driver, which is really, really bad looking back. Like,
What?
no. Not
Bad
like
that you're
not like
watching.
bad movie, not bad movies, but like I watched one time. I watched that Taxi Driver and Clockwork Orange back to back to back. My
Jesus.
dad looked at
Oh,
me one
okay.
time, and he was like, "Are you like okay?" And I'm like, "We need to
Check
stop
me out.
this like right
Oh, I thought
now."
you were saying like Taxi Driver doesn't hold up. I was like, it definitely.
Oh
holds up.
no,
Taxi
it
Driver's
did.
great.
I love it. I love that movie. It's so good.
Yeah, that's quite the marathon of movies right there.
Yeah, no,
Some light stuff.
I don't know.
Dad, put on Clockwork Orange.
Clockwork Orange still occasionally makes me uncomfortable.
I haven't
6
seen it
years
yet.
I watch it, I'm like, there's moments of this that make me very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The book is even worse too.
Mhm.
Like I can't, and it's in like old English. I can't do it.
Johnny's going to do a dramatic reading of it in a couple weeks. In Old
Yes,
English.
yeah, get ready for it.
Do you know, like, could you pull off like an Old English accent?
For
Go.
everyone's
Like,
ears.
You're
and
in
sakes,
the
I'm not
Globe
gonna do
Theater.
that.
You're in the
In
Globe
the
Theater.
Globe Theater.
The
I-
country's just being ravished by the plague. They need you to entertain them, Johnny.
Yes.
We're gonna save that for next week's episode.
A wealthy donor is there and saying to you, if you can entertain me in the Globe Theater here, I will donate so much money that will end the plague. Speak in Old English. Go.
Why?
Now your line, Johnny, is Romeo, oh Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Go.
Again, I'm gonna punt this to next episode because I don't want to butcher this to the point where I'm gonna get made fun of.
So
for-
between this week and next week,
Exactly.
Johnny's just gonna
We'll
crush
be
his
well
Old English.
versed in the Shakespearean class.
I vow I will be well versed in with this Old English accent, and I will kill that line, Kyle.
I'd love it if like I happened to walk by Johnny and he was rehearsing and then you hear, damn it, I'll start over again. All right.
So tune in to next week's episode of On Around This Date, where I'll just
You find, like, a happy-
I'll do the entire On Around This Date in an Old
You find
English.
like a happy medium and just like speak like Hugh Grant or
yeah,
I like it. That's something to look forward to.
exactly.
Don't let us down.
Oh God.
Moving on. This Temple men's basketball team that has gone 0-2 since we last talked to you. They lost 100-91 in what seemed like the millionth overtime game of the season. They lost USF at USF in double overtime Thursday night. And then they played Memphis close on Sunday for a half before running out of gas in the second half, falling to the 17th ranked Tigers 90-82. Some up and down performances in the backcourt across the week. Zion Stanford had 23 at USF and then just 6 at Memphis. Quante Berry was scoreless, went 0 for 10 at USF, and then had 16 points, 5 assists at Memphis. Shane Dezzoni was 1 of 11 at USF, and then had 13 points on 6 of 12 shooting at Memphis. So would have been nice, again, one of those not as high stakes, but kind of reminiscent of like Samaj Inge against Arizona State or Scooty Randall against Indiana. Granted, those were NCAA tournament games, but Quante Berry hits a shot here and there. Dezzoni hits a shot here and there. They might have pulled off a nice win at USF. And against Memphis, again, played well in the first half, and then Memphis just kind of warmed down in the second half. Steve Settle, good week of basketball, 21 points at USF, 17 at Memphis. Went 11 of 24 in those 2 games, 5 of 11 from 3, 10 rebounds at USF. But even without Jamal Mashburn, there's one common denominator with this team that really continues to bite them. We got to talk about it. They are a bad defensive basketball team. It's there for anybody to see. They are dead last in the American in defense. They're allowing an average of 78.4 points per game. They're also 9th out of 13 teams in the league in opponents' field goal percentage. They're allowing teams to shoot 44% per game. Not great. Can this get better? How much of this do you think is talent? How much of this do you think is just like mental lapses? It's obvious. We know they're not defending well. Adam Fisher gets asked about it. We coach it. We work on it. Can this get better, or is this just kind of are who they are? Again, I'm not expecting them to be like a lockdown defensive team over the next 2 games. I'm not expecting them to get to the point where like they're all of a sudden doing what North Texas is doing, or like a Virginia in their prime is doing. But can this get better, or is this just who they are at this point?
Before we answer this, I want to put this in perspective on how bad they have been defensively. Last 5 games, which in fairness, they are 2-3 in. They've won some games. Last 5 games, they've given up 461 points. That's the worst 5-game stretch in Temple history. The previous worst 5-game stretch was 424 points. So 37 more points given up than the worst stretch in franchise history, program history.
Do you give them any, again, it's bad. Do you give them any leniency because a couple of these games went to overtime?
Sure, but the worst one didn't, in my mind. I mean, the fact, yes, like to answer your question, yes, because I mean they go to 3 overtime games, 2 of which are double overtimes during that stretch, but they still give up 88 points to a bad UTSA team. Like it's a historically bad stretch of defensive basketball.
Jamal Mashburn Jr., real quick, again, I think any of you who are Temple fans know this by now. Day-to-day status, we'll see if he plays against Tulsa. Missed the last couple of games with what we are hearing is a toe injury. So I think the staff, I get the sense that they're just trying to be cautious about this. He's tried testing it before both games. Couldn't go. Played against a USF team that was really, really playing well and in some inspired basketball on the night that they honored their late former coach, Amir Abdul-Rahim, who passed away before the season. Really unfortunate, and had really done a great job at Kennesaw State. Had a great season at USF. Almost beat them without Jamal Mashburn Jr. Played Memphis tough in the first half. Just got worn down by a better team. But we'll see if he goes against Tulsa. But beyond the obvious stuff, we know that they don't have like a really skilled rim protector unless Muhammad Keita turns into like a beast over these last several games, or I think there might be a mailbag question along those lines a little bit later on. But I know that the answer is probably not going to be that we're not really optimistic, but what can they do? What should they do? Can this get better? Because again, Kyle pointed out last week, one of the better offensive Temple teams in recent memory, but Kyle just pointed the stats out. They have been historically bad. I think in certain times, in certain situations, they make good in-game adjustments, but defensively, they've just been so bad. Why, and can this get better?
I think like there are parts of it where it just feels like it's straight up mental lapses. Like the moment, like especially late in games, it feels like the moments kind of get to them. Like the USF game specifically in overtime, that game comes to mind because they were like Zion Stanford a couple times where it was just he just would lose his man and collapse way too early. And it's like mental lapses like that where like he loses his man, collapse too early, they kick out, they hit a 3. Or he loses his man, he collapses, his man cuts behind him and gets an easy layup. Like it's stuff like that where it's just like pure mental lapses in like big game moments. And there are other times like early parts throughout the game where it seems like they just get lazy. Like they're focused on the offensive end and they come back and aren't great in transition. and they lose their man in transition, and then it's like stuff like that where like that stuff is fixable. But then there's other parts where like the talent wise, like sometimes you have to go small, you have to take Settle or Bob out because of foul trouble, and when you have to go small like that, it's harder for them to play great defense down low and in the paint. So I think it's a mix of both. I think the mental lapses can be fixed. I think there's other stuff talent wise that might be a little bit harder to fix, but I really don't know. I mean, it's like Kyle mentioned, it's been a brutal 5 game stretch for them offensively.
Another question for you guys that's a bright spot. Aiden Tobiasen,
Right.
16 points in these last 2 games. A really good stretch of basketball. Again, for them, for their case, it's unfortunate that it came in a 2 game losing streak. 9 of 12 in these 2 games, just 1 turnover, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals in these last 2 games. You really see, again, why they were so excited about him, how his recruitment really picked up, why Temple was fortunate to get him. Johnny, I want to ask you about this in a second. You just wrote about him for the Inquirer. I think we've even got a couple mailbag questions about like why is he staying in the lineup, and like he didn't seem confident. He was defending well. He's a very active defender. My question to you guys is, whenever Jamal Mashburn comes back, whether it is against Tulsa, whether it's later in the week against FAU, is there any positive that comes out of this? I guess like the pessimist is going to say, okay, yes, you're getting Jamal Mashburn back. Some fans complain that he's too ball dominant, even though he's a hell of a scorer. But did Aiden Tobias and maybe like getting his feet wet and catching, like just finding his groove, does he stick with that when Mash comes back? Obviously, there are going to be fewer shots to have, but could that be a good thing where like he comes back into the mix and now Aiden Tobias and against 2 pretty good basketball teams, including a ranked one, is feeling more inclined to take that corner 3 or more inclined to follow a shot or do these things? Because we saw in these 2 games what he's really capable of.
Absolutely. I mean, this has been like really like 'cause like you mentioned, there have been people that have put in the mailbag of like, why is he staying in the lineup? And it feels like every time we have to say it, like, just wait. Like he was recruited and is in this spot for a reason. Declan, Rymir, and I went to his games and like we watched him play. He has one of like the most pure shots you'll see, and this is now you're starting to see it. And I think like to your question, John, I think absolutely this has been great for him. And I think there was always that hesitation like before this stretch for him where he'd get it open in the corner and he'd hesitate and he'd pass it. And he's good with that. He can make the right pass. He doesn't really turn the ball over. Only turned the ball over once in this stretch of 2 games. Like I think this could be benefit very good for him and for Temple if he's more willing to shoot that 3 in the corner, because then it spaces out the floor more for Mashburn, because maybe teams have to playing off his shot a little bit more because he's not really shooting. But now if you start shooting that 3-pointer, it opens the floor up for the team a lot more when he's on the court.
I would agree with Jamie on this. It's going to give him the confidence, especially when Mash comes up the floor. You can take those shots. And I think sometimes we see it with a little bit with Baba. We saw it with Dylan earlier in the year. We saw it with Zion at some points last year. Freshman makes a mistake. Fish sometimes feels like he's more inclined to like take them out and just pull him. I don't want to say like put him in timeout, but sometimes that's how it feels like. You make a mistake, you're out. With Aiden, I think now that he has the confidence himself, but also Fish has the confidence in him to kind of leave him out there and take those shots. I feel like in the beginning it was just like, okay, he's not going to take them. Your role in here is just to play defense.
Yeah.
And like that, and I get that. That makes sense. He has the length, he has the size, and he's really good at playing defense, especially in the backcourt with Quante Berry. But now just being out there, he has a really good shot. We saw it at times, but now being able to see these last 2 games, I think it gives Fish the confidence to just let him out there a little bit more and like take the training wheels off, basically.
Yeah.
Like you can let him play your game. You don't just have to do this. Okay, but now this can help you end of conference play, going to this conference tournament, which they still have a realistic shot of getting a double bye. It's slim now, but they still have a shot at it.
Yeah, certainly could use a scorer like him at any point, like now,
Yeah.
yesterday, but certainly in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously it's beneficial for short term and long term of the program. I just wonder how much of it is confidence and how much of it is the coaching staff going to him and being like, guess what? Your role is different than it was 2 games ago. Because like 2 games ago, like Quante Berry's playing well, Jamal Mashburn's the number 2 scorer in the nation. Like your job is not to shoot shots. If you're an open 3, yes, it was always inexcusable when he was passing up open 3s because he's such a good shooter and you have an open 3. But when Jamal Mashburn's not playing and Quante Berry's going 0 for 10 and Shane Zazzoni's going 1 for 11, like you have to take those shots. I wonder how much of it is literally just as simple as being like your role is different than it was 2 days ago. Welcome to the spotlight. So like,
yeah,
I think there's so many minutes that are going to open up after this year, like that essentially probably their entire backcourt will open up. but I don't know, maybe Quante Berry stays, but Jamal Mashburn's usage leaves, that it's obviously very positive for the long term success of the program.
Johnny, where can people check out your Aiden Tobiasen story?
You go to the Philadelphia Inquirer website. I don't remember the exact URL. But,
I'm sorry. Do you not know the URL of the Philadelphia Inquirer?
I mean, isn't it
No,
just
like Johnny was saying, like the
philadelphiainquirer.com?
actual,
Yeah,
like detailed URL of his
for my
specific story.
But like if you go to like philadelphiainquirer.com and you go to colleges, you can look up Temple and you just got to scroll a little bit.
Yeah, you should just have like a
You can look up
Bitly.
Aiden Tobiasen and probably come up.
You should have like a set Bitly or like a set tiny URL that you can just be like, guys, go to tinyurl.com/Johnny Z's latest story, and then
Yeah, I mean that'd be great.
Yeah.
I used to right after not to derail us. Right after college, instead of paying for a domain, I just did tinyurl.com/Kyle Gauss, and that's where I housed all like my resume and my portfolio and stuff.
Smart.
So that way I just go there instead of
Kyle, where can people find your resume?
LinkedIn.com.
Yeah.
I'm not open for work.
Yeah.
I don't have that little banner.
But yes, please go read it. You'll get a lot more backstory on Aiden and kind of how he got to where he is, because his story is amazing, like how he got to where he is now, because there was a point in time where Aiden didn't know if he wanted to play basketball anymore. So very cool moment for him to be getting the playing time and playing as well as he is. So please go read it.
Yeah.
And somebody came down and whispered to him, "You're 6'5" and you can shoot the three. You're playing basketball."
Yeah. In terms of this week's games, the Tulsa game could be a get-right game for Temple. Tulsa's 9-15 overall, 3-8 in the league. They've lost their last 4. Their leading scorer from last year, PJ Haggerty, is, of course, at Memphis now. So Temple's 2 upcoming opponents played each other on Saturday. FAU really rolled past Tulsa 79-55. FAU's 13-10 overall, 6-4 in the American. They're, of course, not the team that they were last year when they were coming off a Final Four season, not the team that Temple knocked off in the conference tournament. DeJuan Odom is Tulsa's best player. He was a really good player coming out of high school. He started Xavier, played 2 seasons there, 2 seasons at Georgia State. He was once a 4-star recruit and the 47th ranked player in the 2020 class. He's been good for them. They've got 4 guys averaging double figures, pretty solid backcourt. Keyston Willis is pretty good, Tyshawn Archie, but they were all really, really held in check against FAU. They did not look good at FAU. Then you look at FAU, again, we're zipping ahead to Saturday. Baba Miller is going to be a real matchup problem for Temple. He's 6'11", 215, real good player coming out of Spain. Played his first 2 seasons at Florida State before really kind of coming into his own this year. He can shoot the 3, already has a career-high mark there. So, well, every game from here on out is a test for Temple. Of course, the big story will be, will they get Jamal Mashburn back? Again, the people we've talked to have indicated to us it's a day-by-day thing. Let's test him, see if he can go. Test him, see if he can go. I think you got to remember that I'm sure the coaches here, again, nobody can predict if he's going to get drafted, but all these players have futures to think of. I think they're just trying to really exercise some caution here. So, of course, we shall see if he ends up playing. But, yeah, bright spot to come out of the 2-game losing streak, the growth of Aiden Tobiasen, but the defense has still been not so good. So we'll talk more hoops in the mailbag, more men's hoops in the mailbag. It's women's basketball team. They beat Memphis, lost to USF, but the big issue coming out of this is that Diane Richardson's team is now 0-5 against the top teams in the league, against UTSA, USF, North Texas, and Tulane. And even in the Memphis game, they almost blew a 17-point lead. So, Johnny, Colin, Ryan, I'll throw it over to you guys on this, but what has Diane Richardson been saying about their inability to close out games? I feel like some of the same themes persist. They play stretches of some really good basketball. I don't know. Can this get any better, or are they very clearly just outside the top 4? Is this what they are right now?
I don't want to say they're clearly outside of the top 4, because in a lot of these games, they're like within striking distance.
Sure.
Like this
if not firmly in control.
Exactly. Like it's like the USF team, they obviously they had the lead early, went up like 12-8 with like 2 minutes left in the first quarter, gave up like a 10-1 run or whatever. Then they battle their way back, get to the fourth quarter, you cut it to 2 within the first like 2 minutes of the quarter, and then it just goes like all the momentum you had just goes away. And I think a lot of this, like GR East had like an insane third quarter, 4 steals, 3 layups in transition. Like she basically swung that momentum all the way back, which was a great to see from her. I think that's a big sign, like that she's starting to get back to the way she is. But it just felt like the rebounding late in the game killed them, and they turned the ball over a lot more, and they just couldn't really play defense towards the end and get stops, which is when it really mattered. Credit to USF the way that they played, got to the foul line towards the end and knocked down shots, but I think the rebounding, turnovers, and just defense late kind of killed them.
And you kind of talk about Tiarese's third quarter, especially she had a big third quarter. She only had 5 minutes in that fourth quarter, which is another
Yes.
big thing. And they had 2 players to foul out in Terriana Gary and Anissa Rivera. They also had 2 other people with 4 fouls overall.
The
They had
fouls
people-
killed them.
But Thierry was not one of them all. She had 2. Like,
Yeah.
and she only had 2 going into the fourth quarter, so they could have played.
Yeah,
her.
I don't know what I mean, there wasn't really a
Mhm.
stoppage after the
No.
fourth quarter started until like 5 minutes
Mid-minutes
left.
in.
So it was kind of hard to get her in.
Yeah.
I was just shocked that she didn't start the
Start.
fourth quarter after how she played
Mhm.
the third. I don't know I guess
Yeah.
give her a break and try to close out the game, keep it close, and then close out the game with her.
Mhm.
But by that time, it already kind of like everything had kind of unraveled a bit,
Mhm.
and especially going into that, also their offense. We've always talked about there's one quarter game where it feels like everything kind of like goes south for them,
Yeah.
and for this, it was like it felt like the end of the second quarter and the beginning of that third quarter. Win halftime down 7. Go into that third quarter by the middle of it, go down double digits. Terry East is the reason they come back into that game. Then they kind of chip into a little bit in the beginning of that fourth quarter. They go 5.5 minutes without scoring.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what it felt like almost every single quarter with the team. It was like, okay, they score a little bit, 3-minute scoring drought. They score a little bit, 2.5 minute scoring drought. They score a little bit, 4-minute scoring drought. Then fourth quarter, 5.5 minute scoring drought. It was just every single time you give a little, then it was like 1 step forward, then 3 steps back a little bit.
It just seems like it happens again. Like every team goes through scoring droughts. If they didn't
Yeah.
go through scoring droughts, they'd be like the Loyola Marymount teams of like the 80s where they're scoring 130, 140 points a game. Colin, what's your view on this? Again, like I feel like they know what the issues are. Difference between them and the men's team is they have been able to stay relatively healthy. They had they had the top teams in the conference on the ropes. That we talked about the blown opportunities at North Texas, at UTSA. Yes, they've been banged up. Anissa Rivera, no, wasn't Anissa Rivera? No, Maya Oliver was out a little bit at the beginning of the season, but for the most part, they've been relatively healthy. Why can they not get out of their own way? Again, they lost to a good USF team, almost lost to an average Memphis team, we'll say. Nice crowd with the elementary school students there and everything, nice atmosphere. But why have they not been able to get out of their own way with this stuff?
For me, it feels like with the equal opportunity offense that Coach Rich has preached for so long, it feels like that's almost taken a step back in the last few weeks and last few games. Julissa Molina, I mean, who we raved about early on in conference play, was playing so well. She had 1 point, 4 personal fouls and 3 turnovers against South Florida. And I think only one game in the last 5 or 6, which when they've struggled, she has scored in double digits. Same goes for Kayla Turner, who started conference play just on fire and was like seemingly a 6th starter for them, who could come in and just be so reliable. Scored double digits in the Memphis games. The rest of those losses, she's not scoring double digit points. And then Tierra East struggled for so long. It's Terriana Gary stepping up into that. But then Tierra East plays well against South Florida. Terriana Gary takes a step back and shoots just 4 for 16 and fouls out. So it feels like that equal opportunity offense that has been so reliant on their success, where there's multiple players who can score, and we know they still can score, but it feels like those players who they were relying on, Julissa Molina, Kayla Turner, and Tierra East for so long, they are all kind of going cold at almost the same time, and it's like it's just hurting them in this stretch where if one player is going cold, there's not another one who's stepping up and kind of snapping Tierra East out of it. It's like, okay, Kayla Turner's going to go and get 5 or 6 points in this 4-minute stretch. That's turning into those like extended scoring droughts where it feels like everybody's going cold. And I think that's what's kind of gotten them in their own way here, is that equal opportunity offense. It's almost come back to bite them, because now it seems like nobody can score consistently.
Could they be doing a better job of saying, oh, forget like trying to spread the ball around. If one person's hot, we got to like force the ball to them on these possessions to keep things going.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember. I think it was the Memphis game where Terriana Gary wouldn't create. I think I forget which game it was off the top of my head, but like sometimes they're good with that. Like Terriana Gary, I just remember like she had a really hot game where she knocked down a bunch of threes, and like they were good at getting.
I think it was against Memphis, against Memphis, yeah.
Like they were good at getting the ball to her at that point, but like then there are other times where it's just like it feels like Colin kind of said, nobody's hot. Like there's nobody to get the ball to, so they just continue with what they're doing.
By the time you guys have listened to this podcast, they will have played UAB. So, and then they've got Tulane Saturday down in New Orleans. So we'll see how things develop for this team. Talk a little bit of football here before we jump into the mailbag. Again, you've got the second and third parts of Casey Keeler's interview with us to listen to. Before we even get to that, another hire that you talk to some people here and there, and it seems like a really smart hire. Casey Keeler hired Khalil Ahmad from Penn State. He was the recruiting coordinator at Penn State. He'd previously been at Rutgers and Syracuse. Kyle, did you break this, or you were close to breaking?
No, I think I actually didn't break this one.
Okay.
That sounded snootier than I. I think legitimately,
my off days.
legitimately, this was not one that we scooped. Though I have gotten some more information on it since then that I don't think other people have had. Yeah, Khalil Ahmad, who's coming from Penn State, was essentially, if you want to put a title on it, maybe Penn State's number 1, number 2 off-field recruiting coordinator. Kind of speared up a lot of their Mid-Atlantic recruiting that, honestly, like most Penn State teams, they're really based on the Mid-Atlantic. I mean, even just looking at this year, like Malachi Goodman and Jameer Joseph are kind of like their gems of their recruiting class. Ahmad very heavily involved in the recruitment of both of those. Talked to 2 different sources about this when this broke. The first source told me that's a legit hire. He has a ton of New Jersey connections. The second source, the exact quote I had here was, he should be able to really help Temple unlock a higher level of recruit in the region, particularly in New Jersey. So he's going to be an associate GM for Temple along with Kyle Pollack, who I believe came from, they're kind of going to both be maybe the top of the org chart on that off-field recruiting. But yeah, it's he's had an interesting career. I mean, he was one of Fran Brown's first hires when Fran got that job at Syracuse. He then just immediately went back to Penn State a couple months later, but initially he was going to kind of spearhead the off-field recruiting for Syracuse, and instead just came back to Penn State. So yeah, he's highly respected as a recruiter, and it's been a little while since Temple's had a strong presence in New Jersey, which, you know, Casey Keeler has made a conscious effort to say that, hey, they're going to go back to hammering that footprint. So this is a good hire in that sense.
Kind of get this sense too, like, you know, from the fan base, again, this is what it is. They have not had a single spring practice yet, not a single preseason practice yet. We know about the holes on the roster. The coaches are aware of that, but you talk to some people here and there and they say, okay, the staff is really starting to make sense. This looks like there's some cohesion here. This guy makes sense for Jersey. This guy makes sense, and they can maybe dip into Ohio, Western PA. So like I said earlier, if you are an owlscoop.com subscriber, you can listen to parts 2 and part 3 of my conversation with Casey Keeler. That will give you a lot more information about the staff. I asked him about Tyler Walker, the offensive coordinator, Brian Smith, the defensive coordinator, Rick Brown, their specialist coach, comes from a family of specialist coaches, talked about how he'll look at the single-digit tradition. So a lot of cool stuff. I mean, Casey's been doing this for a long time. He's a really good storyteller, very engaging storyteller, and just has a lot of connections, and you can kind of see how all this is woven together. Since it's been an Eagles week, you know, just in case you missed this, I know some of you are not as active on social media. I did ask Casey last week heading into the Super Bowl, hey, you went to camp with the Eagles in 82, went to camp with the Eagles again in 83. What was your time like with, you know, one year it was Dick Vermeil, the other year it was Marion Campbell. And he told this cool story about how, like, he thought he was going to make the team. It was coming down to final cuts, and the Eagles were set to draft the center. They instead drafted, well, this is before it got to final cuts, and they drafted a guy named Wes Hopkins, who of course went on to be this incredible safety. But we had this out just in case you didn't hear it before, thought it would play. It's a fun Eagles week. They won the Super Bowl. Here's Casey Keeler talking about his time with the Eagles and how he almost made the team.
I took a job up at Amherst College in Massachusetts coaching tight ends, and I go into that gym every day, and I trained, and I called Fred up. And Fred didn't remember me, but he didn't tell me that. Went down to Veterans Stadium and worked out, and I ran, I think it was a 4.53, and I benched like 380, and I did all the drills perfectly, and he was like, wow, that was really good. And I remember you now. You're the guy from Delaware. I'm like, yeah. Yeah, I'm the guy from Delaware, and we're going to sign you today. And so we went to Carl Peterson, and they got a contract for me that day, and that's how I, got my first contract with the Philadelphia Eagles. And then go down to the last cut, and they say, listen, we're probably not going to draft anybody. They reached out to me again, and it sounds like John Shira might retire, and Randy Logan might retire, and you have a great shot to making the team. So Randy Logan doesn't retire. John Shiver does not retire. And the first pick of the second round, so he's basically a first rounder, they draft Wes Hopkins. And so the gentleman who filled out the cards for the draft, Mike Doherty, I grabbed Mike. I go, Doc, what happened there? He goes, I had the card filled out for a center that I think was Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay took like 2 picks earlier, and so now we're scrambling. And so now we take the best available player, Wes Hopkins. Well, Wes is my roommate, and I wake up at like 5 in the morning just looking at him because he pulled his hamstring. He couldn't practice, and I was getting beat up every day. And went down to the very last cut, and they kept Wes and cut me. But, I mean, Wes had a pretty good career, you know? I mean,
All right, again, if you have not listened to parts 2 and part 3, if you're not a subscriber, again, great time to subscribe. We were able to talk about pretty much, a lot of what you could hope to know at this point. Of course, once we get into spring ball, then we'll start getting into some nitty gritty when they can start seeing some players on the current roster. Speaking of which, the spring schedule came out just today. So spring ball will start on Tuesday, March 11th. And like previous coaches, we're going to get a fair amount of access to the assistant coaches. We'll get a chance to talk to Tyler Walker, Brian Smith, Brian Ginn, pretty much almost all of the assistant coaches here. They're going to be on a Tuesday, Thursday schedule. Their pro day is going to be taking place on Thursday, March 27th. A lot of the NFL typically descends on their pro day. Tim Terry, when I talked to him a couple weeks ago, the Chiefs director of player personnel, said he'd probably be down for that, given his Temple ties. So some spring football coverage to come, actually exactly 1 month away. So we got the schedule today, and we'll have stories pretty much almost every day of spring ball, along with, of course, ongoing recruiting coverage as well. Let's hop into the mailbag. We've got actually quite a few questions this week via Twitter. As we do every week, we hear from our friend Mike Greenspan of Greenspan and Greenspan Injury Lawyers. Again, he's there if you need him, but he wants to keep you safe on the road. Here's his weekly tip for staying safe on the road as a driver.
Nobody likes paying insurance, and nobody likes paying more for insurance. Well, that's the reality because insurance rates are going up across the board, across the nation. So what can you do about it? Well, take a look at your policy and go speak with your agent, because are you actually properly covered for what you need? Did you know that there is insurance that will protect you if you get hurt by a driver who didn't have insurance at all or only had state minimum insurance? It's not something we ever really want to think about. But you know what? When you're getting your insurance renewal, it's the time to speak with your agent. And hey, pro tip, don't go with one of those 1-800 companies who want to save you 15% for switching their insurance. Speak with an actual agent who will protect your interest and make sure that you are protected in the event of something bad. Stay safe out there.
First one here comes from the message board from the screen name Temple J. Is Jameel Brown at all on the plans for next year? I think I've said this before. I literally, I hate to sound like a coach, I don't look past beyond this year with any player anymore. As cliche as that sounds, I would imagine that the staff wants to have Jameel Brown back. Again, he is more than likely going to be a medical red shirt. He's out due to some personal reasons right now. You see him on the bench. He's engaged. He's locked in. I have no idea what his plans are going to be. I know that the staff likes him. He is described by everybody as he's a great, I've gotten the chance to know him. Really, really nice young man, great teammate. I would think that the staff wants to have him back. Now, is he going to get an NIL offer from somewhere else? Who knows? But yes, he is in their plans for next year. I'm assuming that a lot of these guys, they would like to bring them back. It is a year-by-year thing at this point. So
Yeah.
I would assume he's well, I can't assume that he's going to be back. I think the staff would want him back. We will see, just like everyone else, like him, Quante Barry, Aiden Tobias. And again, they have to re-recruit everybody now. So we shall see. Nurbanu Sahin, our assistant news editor at the Temple News. What is everyone's favorite Temple sport to cover? Ryan, do you want to go first, and we'll work our way around here?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say real quick. I feel like you, Nurbanu, I've never met you. I feel like she's making fun of us. I feel like this is a little bit of a jab.
Is she making fun of us? I think she's like legit.
I think
she's got a great. Nurbanu has a great sense of humor. She is very, very funny. I don't think she's making fun.
I
of
think
us.
she's making fun of us a little bit.
I don't know.
We'll ask Nurbanu.
Yeah, we'll ask her.
Johnny and Nurbanu go back and forth. There's some healthy dialogue going back and forth there.
There's got to be healthy dialogue in every relationship.
She is very. She's very funny.
If it's just purely cordial the entire time, then it isn't really a relationship.
Good report at the Temple News. She's got an Owl Scoop hat. She's become an Owl Scoop fan. We appreciate it. What do you think? Your favorite Temple sport to cover?
Basketball, probably. Like that's by the hands down my favorite one to cover. Especially like the women's team. Coach Rich is a fantastic coach. And just seeing like the vibes of the players in the team, we were able to get close with Coach Rich, like Miles, like and everyone last year. So it's just nice, like being down, and just like being able to be able to cover them because this team is a team that deserves the coverage that it gets.
Johnny?
I have a feeling you're gonna get the same answer out of the three of us. I mean, I don't know about you, Colin, but for me, also women's basketball. Coach Richardson is one of the most open coaches that you could talk with. She is real with you. She's honest. She's never gonna like give you like coach speak, or sometimes it's coach speak, but it's like she's normally pretty real with you. Like like if you ask like what went wrong, she'll tell you. She's open. Like they let us like go to practice and talk with the assistant coaches. Like the entire staff is just so amazing. They're great to cover, and like Ryan said, they're like we just try to give them the covers that they feel like they deserve because they do deserve it. So women's basketball.
I can echo Ryan and Johnny's thoughts here. I love covering the women's basketball team, but for me, it's the field hockey team.
That's true.
I've covered them. I covered them the entirety of last year and majority of this past season as well. And Coach Michelle Batiste, who's been there for 4 or 5 years now, she's an absolute joy to talk to. She's similar to Coach Rich, where I don't think she's as like funny and outgoing, but she is so smart and will talk you through any answer ever. Like I went into that covering field hockey not knowing anything about the sport, and she gave me so much knowledge, and it was so much fun talking to her. That team is so much fun to be around. I think they give off similar vibes as the women's basketball team. I love covering the field hockey team. I'll say that's my favorite.
I agree because that's also where I got my start with covering and reporting and stuff. So that's a good answer, Colin.
And had a good season. Felt just short of would have been a really memorable season had they knocked off UConn. Kyle, what do you think? What's your favorite Temple sport to cover?
I don't cover anything. I'm just the floating head guy.
Yeah.
I like covering recruiting. Football offers you the most opportunity to cover recruiting. So I'll go football. Just because, I mean, basketball, in a good year, you're looking at 3 or 4 guys that might end up becoming targets. Football, you're looking at 40, 50 guys that end up becoming targets. So I'll say football.
Do you have a favorite football season that you've covered?
Ooh, that's a good question. I still think that 2016 team was the most fun to cover because so many people wrote off that team after the 2015. Like, this must be the high water mark. They had the Bronco Nagurski Award winner. They had they beat Penn State. They almost beat Notre Dame, and they come back that next year with guys that were maybe a little less heralded, and they produce a first-round pick. They win the conference. Everyone's happy. Then Matt Rule rides off into the sunset.
Yeah,
I'll say 2016. Before that, I mean, that 2019 was fun just because it was like finally they broke through. Like they found like a gem in Bernard. They won ugly. That wasn't like a fun football team to watch.
Oh, you said 2009. I thought you said 2019 at first.
No, 2009. 2019 was honestly 2019 was a
good season.
Good team to
before
watch
things
too.
got really bad.
Yeah, that's when they beat the crap out of Georgia Tech. They stopped Maryland at the goal line. Like, that's some good years. I'll say 2016.
Yeah, 2015. Obviously, a lot of fun for a lot of reasons. But even before they got to Notre Dame, they knew that there was a chance that if they got to Notre Dame week undefeated, the college game day, like there was a pretty good chance that they were coming here. And a couple of those games, I mean, they literally like what they did to beat UMass. The 2-point
Blocked
extra point,
which they returned.
Really like, and playing that game against UMass and like before like a couple thousand fans up at Gillette. We were up there for that game. Somebody asked me this on our message boards. Yes, they are opening against UMass this year, but it is on campus in Amherst, not at Gillette Stadium, but a lot of time between now and then. And then barely holding off ECU in the week before, because had they lost at ECU, they're probably not hosting Notre Dame here for
Is that
game day.
Like a Kip Patton game? Does that sound right?
Might have been. I wish Kip could have kept things together here. He had a chance to be pretty good at tight end, like almost like a big wide receiver at tight end. But I go back and forth between basketball and football. Football is you could say that any sport is a developmental sport, but football is really a developmental sport. And it still is, although now there's the sense of immediacy. Like you might have a guy and lose him pretty quickly. I've always just had fun over the years being able to pick a coach's brain and say, like, who looks good. Matt was always good with this stuff. Matt Rule just telling me, like, hey, who's got a chance? Nate Hairston. I remember him explaining to me how he thought Hassan Reddick, he'd saying that this kid is doing somersaults in practice. He is that athletic. He's healthy now, and if we can harness this into something, he could be really good. Now Hassan is. He did or did not sign a 3-year deal with the Jets. What is his contract status with the
I
Jets?
thought they renegotiated it, so it was basically a 1-year deal.
Oh, okay, so he's going to be on another prove-it deal somewhere else, maybe. But nonetheless, has gone on to a very good career. So it's fun covering football. It's been fun covering football here. It was not fun covering football here in the '90s. I got to see a lot of great players, but
Yeah, he's a free agent after this year.
Yeah,
Didn't put on the best season for his free agency year, but
yeah. Twitter handle off the hook 3. The next question here. Any one of you guys going to the parade? How would you assess Casey Keeler's staff? Some of the recruiting manager hires seem good on paper. As far as I know, Chell and I are going to the parade on Friday.
I'll be there.
You going?
I would be there.
You guys are
I will
going.
be there.
Going.
Yeah.
I'll be there. If you see me, I'll be holding a riot bag, and I will be giving myself up to South Philly for the day.
Wait, do you know, I'm not, do you want to dox yourself? Do you know where you're going to try to go?
No idea. And I look like every white dude in the world. It's impossible to dox myself. It was gonna
White man with a beard. It looks
yeah,
like
right. I'm wearing a hat to prevent to hide the fact that his hairline's receding and he hasn't gotten a haircut in like 3 months. Like I look like there's gonna be a million of me on Friday. Yeah, I mean I'll probably end up somewhere in South Philly, like further down. I think. Than
Okay.
I was more Center City last time because that was when there was the wonderful promotion that Bud Light was doing where they give out the tokens, you get a free Bud Light. I found out that they were giving out the tokens at Fox and Hound, RIP. So I would just go in, get a free beer, wipe the stamp off, circle back around, get a free beer. Did that about 9 times before finally being
It's amazing.
I think I still have it. Yeah, there's the free
You
Bud
look
Light.
like, you know what you look like just there? And I know I quote this movie way too much. Who do you think you look like holding up that little thing just there?
Couldn't tell you.
You, me, and Dupree, Owen Wilson at the end. What was the bachelor party thing? What was the little thing he had at the end? It was the best man thing. He holds it up at the end. That's what it looked like just there. I don't know. I butchered that, but you reminded me of that. You were, yeah, I feel like you guys had a lot of memories at Fox and the Hound. You loved that place.
They used to have $2 Tuesdays, and you could get they had a reward points for drinking beers. So like once every like 2 times you go, you get a free burger and fries. They had $2 Tuesdays for any beer, including like Mad Elf during Christmas. So you'd you'd slap down a $5 bill, get 2 Mad Elves, be feeling pretty good. And it was walking distance from our apartment at the time.
I get a kick out of the story. Can you tell Ryan and Colin about the time you dropped your license at Fox and Hound? This cracks me up.
I had just done like a news spot on like 6 ABC or Fox or something about Temple football. Like I was on TV. And then I'm at Fox and Hound, and a girl comes up and taps me on the shoulder and says, "Are you Kyle Gauss?" And I thought it was because of that. And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And she goes, "You dropped your ID," and hands me my driver's license.
I love it.
I was like, "All right." Sounds good. Thank you.
Story cracked me up. I wasn't even there for that. It just makes me laugh. So
my wife, I think your girlfriend at the time, my future wife was with me. So I didn't think like, oh, this girl's expressing interest and I'm going to like get her number. No, like I just literally thought like somebody recognized me from TV.
Didn't Meg say to you like,
yeah, I think
like
Meg
you're
just
arrogant enough
clowned
to
me.
think that she knew
Meg
who you were?
clowned me. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, I think I'm going to try to be, I'll give my buddy Jeff Foreman a shout out. Temple grad, does not work in journalism. He is an actuary. We always used to tease him about that. Like, what does an actuary do? But hey, he's carved out a nice life for himself. He and his wife are both in the risk management business. He lives down around like 7th and Fitzwater. I think we're going down to his place. They live near Angelo's. Maybe we'll be able to grab. Well, we got no shot at getting into Angelo's Day Parade.
You have no shot
no,
at getting it.
no.
They might not
Unless he
even open,
orders
to
it
be
the night
honest.
before. I don't know.
Then you'll
might
get
not-
it.
Angelo's
then-
will always have like a random, again, love Angelo's food. They're great. But like they always have a random, like once or twice a year, like they have a flood or like an oven issue or something like that. Again, love their food.
Yeah, they're at 7th and Fitzwater.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
down there. Like
Yeah.
those
But
things
we're-
happen.
Yeah, we're gonna try to Kyle, watch your mouth.
What? What did I say?
You said 7th and Fitzwater. Those things
ninth
happen.
and Fitzwater, whatever it is.
Yeah. Was that a shot at the Italian American community, Kyle?
No, I'm just saying. Do you remember when we lived at 11th and Daly and the Italian place half a block down the street caught on fire?
Oh, not just pizza?
No, not just pizza the other way, closer to Broad Street. Remember there was that Italian place?
Johnny's.
Johnny's. Boom, on
Oh,
fire.
man. Johnny's is really good. Now we're just doing no free shout outs, but we're giving free shout outs. Johnny's at 12th and Wolf. Amazing. It is back up and running. A lot of food gems down there. Anyway, hoping to go to the parade. So to answer your question, how would you assess Keeler's staff? I think I said this earlier. Like a lot of people we've talked to have said that name makes sense. That name makes sense. We were talking about this before we started recording, and we've talked about this before on the Scoop. Stan Drayton is a first-time head coach, was not a former sitting head coach. Not that that was looked upon as a bad thing at the time. There have been a lot of coaches who've had success here that were not previously head coaches. But it was kind of like this hodgepodge of people. I just know by now way too well that like Everett Withers had a very, very heavy hand in putting that staff together, and things did not work out. Not to say that like some of those coaches weren't good, but you talk to some people in college football and they say, Brian Smith, good hire. Tyler Walker, yes, still young, but a fast riser. Obviously did a good job at Montana State. The recruiting ties, I don't know. It makes sense. Again, we'll have to see. I'm not saying they're going to be a 10-win team this year. We'll have to see what this roster looks like. But I would say that people generally have a favorable assessment of the staff that he has put together so far. You feel the same, Kyle?
Yeah, I think it's hard as outsiders to gauge like beyond coordinators. Like you can look at a coordinator and say, okay, they were successful at A, B, and C. A defense coordinator did good at this. It's hard sometimes to look at position coaches and be like, is that guy a good coach, or did he just have good players? Like what might be. The phrase I would use for this staff is it feels like a professional staff. Not in the sense of like this should be the Eagle staff, but like it feels like these are guys that were put together professionally. They each kind of are a puzzle piece that makes sense. And for the most part, like 90% of them have pretty heavily, if not exclusively, recruited this area. So like, yeah, it makes sense to me. There have been very few names that I'm like, I had to like squint to be like, why is that guy in the staff? Like they all make sense to me.
Parts 1 and 2 of my conversation with Casey Keeler, like we didn't have time to get into every single coach, but a lot of stuff on Henry Baker, Roundtree, Andrew Pierce. Ryan, you had a chance to talk to, you interviewed Andrew last week, right?
Yeah.
And again, like a bright young assistant, really cool story, played at a high school at Cumberland Regional that is not known for producing a lot of great players, and walked on at Delaware. And Casey coached him there, and he's really, really well respected in South Jersey. I remember hearing about him long after I left that area. I might have been talking about this last week, but yeah, it's a staff, like Kyle said, that like they seem to have their act together. We'll see how they do in terms of recruiting and executing their plan there. I think you would assess their staff and saying like it makes sense. Seems pretty good so far. Again, a lot of football ahead of them. Sienna Conahan, who's going to be joining our staff and doing some stuff for us in the future. I think 2 weeks ago, she basically went from like, who's your favorite staff member to now like very, very, very professional question here. How effectively is the men's basketball team handled not having Jamal Mashburn on the court in these last 2 games? We were talking about this either at the beginning of the pod. I don't know. My memory is just awful now. Or like before we started recording. Look, they took USF to overtime. They were playing toe-to-toe with Memphis in the first half. They have not, I know it, they were 0-2 at the end of the day. They lost both games, but they did not look like they were all standing around like, oh, we're screwed because Mash is out. You tip your cap to the coaches there. You tip your cap to the players. The pessimists could say like, well, Jamal Mashburn, I'm sure we're seeing some of that already. Like, oh, he's clogging things up. He's a scorer. He's hogging the ball. Too much ISO stuff. They're moving the ball around a little bit better. But I feel like they've handled it about as well as they could, but I'll tip it over to you guys, see what you think.
Yeah, obviously without his play style, without him, they're passing the ball around. They look a little bit more comfortable. They've been able to gel, and I think that's because they had the confidence with being able to score with him on the court. Mm-hmm. So when he's off the court, now in these last 2 games, they now have the confidence, their abilities to be able to do that. The only thing when he's not on the floor, and I think you've seen it in the end of the game of the South Florida and those 2 overtimes, and at the end of Memphis game, they do not have someone that can just take the ball and score at will in crunch time.
Yep.
As good as Quante Berry has gotten, as good as Zion Stanford has gotten, as good as Steve Settle has been, that is what they've needed. Not saying they beat Memphis with Jamal Mashburn, but like you were tied with them at halftime, and like we're playing well with them for most of it. Besides that one like 13-3 run. That's what got the game out of hand, but you can probably keep pace with them. That South Florida game, I think they win. But it's just some things. It's like there are times where you can just see, okay, Masha taking the shot there, like that shot that Zion Stanford took with Jameel Reynolds right in front of him at the end of the game.
Perfect example there. Like, I would imagine, and again, like, look, Zion Stanford is still a very good basketball player. If Temple can keep him around, he will most likely progress. I can reasonably assume that Zion was not coached up to take a 3 over Jameel Reynolds. They probably wanted to shot fake there, try to get him around him. Split-second decision. He gets the shot up. Looks like Jameel got part of his hand. They're probably not going to make that call. Yeah, he got fouled. They didn't make the call in that situation. So, if you're an optimist, like I was saying earlier, you hope that maybe both parties, the rest of the team, and Jamal Mashburn look at the film from the last 2 games and say, okay, yes, we'd rather be 16-8 than 14-10, right? So, but maybe we can learn. All right, we've seen Aiden Tobias and get more confident. Maybe Mash takes a step back and says, okay, I can see where maybe, yes, I'm still the scorer. I'm still the alpha dog here, but I can still get other people involved. Maybe we can meet somewhere in the middle on this. So
I think they would have gone 0-2 with Jamal Mashburn. I think they would still have lost both those games
because of how bad defensively they were.
You can point towards the Zion shot, like maybe obviously that ball would have probably gone to Jamal and like figured out there. Maybe he draws contact and they get there. Jamal Mashburn does not play interior defense. Jamal Mashburn did not let Jameel Reynolds, who shot 17% the game before, go 11 of 15 for 25 and 12. Nostra Gausmus, whatever you want to say. I was the only one to say that game scares me because Jameel Reynolds is going to eat them alive.
Yep.
And like that's what happened. Like Jameel Reynolds, like that type of scoring big, they do not have an answer for on this roster.
No.
So like that would be a matchup that if it happens in the conference tournament would give me pause. Like I'm a little concerned about people like Jameel Reynolds when they play Temple.
Stapler01 is the screen name from our message boards. What do you think are the reasons for Keeler's sustained success? What is he doing that is different from most other coaches? I think I asked him that in the first part of our conversation. I said, why you were able to be successful at Rowan, at a D3 school. You were able to win a national championship at an FCS school in Delaware. You were able to win a national championship at another FCS school at Sam Houston State. Then you were able to have success at moving them from FCS to FBS. And he said, and again, you can go back and listen to it again. I think it's in the first part, in part 1. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're not an Owl Scoop subscriber, you can go back and listen to the pod from last week, right? When we played part 1. So he talks about it there, but he said, I like to think of myself as like the ultimate problem solver. Again, I'm paraphrasing here. He talks about being flexible, but yeah, I mean, it's a great question. He's had different levels of success in different areas. He talked about the fact that like, hey, before I got the Sam Houston State job, I'd never been down to Texas. People were probably saying about me, this guy's not from this area, but yeah, he talks about that a lot. So I'd encourage you all to go back and listen to that. Great question. The screen name here is The Hick. After the USF game, and with some good work in Memphis, how committed are the coaches to giving young fellas bigger minutes? They have. Aiden Tobias starts. Most of the guys on this team are now. Steve Settle is older, but I mean, they literally just got a great game from Aiden Tobias, and we just talked about that. Quante Berry is still relatively young. I mean, unless you're hinting at want them to see like, well, I mean, like, so there's a second part of his question, was the likelihood of Dorodola getting more minutes of trial by fire work? The quick answer to that is he has to stay out of foul trouble. Right. Otherwise, he starts.
He's got 11 fouls in his last 36 minutes.
Everything has been trial by fire for him. Like he literally came into the program late August, and not to drag Dylan Battie into this, but again, that's been a popular question. Why is Dylan Battie not playing? Why is Dylan Battie not playing? He's a freshman. Maybe he just hasn't picked things up as quickly as Bob has. I don't think there's any preconceived, and the Hick, I know this is nowhere near your question, but the coaches have showed, like, if you're a freshman, you can play, we're going to play you. They're starting Aiden Tobias, and they are starting Babatunde Dorodola. All of it's been trial by fire work. He's going to, again, if they can bring him back, he's going to have the full benefit of a college offseason where he's not learning everything in August. And I think you could see him take a serious step forward. Again, he's their best rebounder. I know they don't have, like, a ton of depth. The only thing I can think of that the Hick might be implying here is, like, do you stick with a guy like Mokita longer? Maybe I'm putting words in your mouth here, but he's got Mokita is what he is. He's got length, but his hands aren't great.
Yeah, so also a redshirt junior, like
yeah. So he's not, obviously he's not younger, but yeah, I feel like they haven't had any issues with giving young guys. It's all been trial by fire stuff.
Yeah. And Bob was third in the American Athletic Conference in fouls here. Like, we can't let's see us so for real.
Yeah.
And Dylan looks lost when he plays. And he looks so confused whenever he's out on the court.
Yeah, and it's part of it. I hate to sound so cliche, but it is what it is. So I think all of it's been trial by fire. And Dylan Battie stays, and I'm not trying to drop hints here, guys. Like, I just say if this person stays, because it's just pre-programmed into my brain now. But like, if Dylan Battie stays, he could look like a completely different basketball player next year. Freshman, like Khalif Wyatt was literally hitting the side of the backboard against Kansas before he turned into a really good player. Same for Luis Guzman. Same for Ramon Moore. We've been over all of this with some of these players in a different time, different era of college basketball. But Baba could look completely different next year. Like
Yeah.
Zion is taking steps forward. So I think the likelihood of all these younger guys getting more minutes, A, they already are, and B, I think the coaches do not discriminate between. Obviously, I think they can trust someone like Steve Settle or, of course, a Jamal Mashburn Jr., but they are certainly not opposed to playing younger guys.
Couple things. One,
Sure.
I've noticed with Khalif being a player development guy now, still has Leaf faces on the bench. During if
Yes.
you watch our TV, there's still a lot of times they'll pan to the bench and Khalif White's still just giving you a Leaf face. Don't
Mhm.
want that to go unnoticed. Two, don't want to steal a quote from Dave Patino, but I'm going to say it. The biggest difference in a lot of sports is the jump from year one to year two in a program. You see it with Quante Barry. Quante Barry went from a guy who looked lost last year to now looks like a guy that you're really hoping sticks around because you think he
Mhm.
could be a cornerstone of your team. That same thing can happen with some of these younger guys. It's more likely to happen in the offseason than it is to happen because they played 6 extra minutes in February.
Do you find any joy in the fact that we have reached back to quote people like Rod Carey and Dave Patino, and be like Rod Carey's like, hey, guys are allowed to get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guess what? People like even bad coaches are allowed to have good like
Yeah.
sound bites. And like there's been a couple of them.
Dave's had good-
Honestly, I was higher on Dave P than most people were. I think his offenses did put up a lot of points. Just not the right style for Temple.
Yeah,
I
Dave
guess.
was not like he was a smart coach. Didn't hasn't worked out for him a couple of places, but yeah. But
That second year at Temple, that offense scored a lot of points.
absolutely. Yeah, how much work is being done to overcome breakdowns in situational awareness and execution, excessive dribbling through half court zones, all the stuff that you're mentioning here, reliance on one-on-one play. I would assume that they work on all the stuff. If you ask Fish about some of this stuff, we work on it. We work on it. It's a matter of executing it. Inability or unwillingness to box out. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I can't say that the players are unwilling to box out. Maybe they have been. I can't climb into their minds. I don't know that there's an unwillingness there. Shane Dezzoni has been a very good rebounding guard. Baba, again, we just talked about him. He is a freshman, a true freshman who came in here and reclassed. You're hitting on a lot of the issues here that we can all see, but they work on it in practice. They've had some, and not just the injury, but Shane's been out. They certainly have games that they have lost that they should have won. They could be a 16, 17, 18 win team right now. They've got stuff to work on. You're seeing all the same stuff that we're seeing. We got to see if they get Jamal Mashburn Jr. back against Tulsa and against FAU and see how reintegrating a healthier version of him into the lineup works. We'll see. Al Worldwide is the screen name on the next question here with the scholarship count, expected to be raised to 15. Is Temple expected to use all 15 for men's and women's basketball, or will they stick to the original 13? What about football? I haven't asked Adam Fisher this specifically. My educated guess is I don't know that they would use all 15 just for the sake of using all 15, because sometimes coaches, even before it gets pushed to 15, they'll say, hey, it's hard to keep 13 guys happy, even if you hope ideally that some guys know that they're practice guys, glue guys, whatever. I don't see a universe where Adam Fisher would say, oh, awesome, we're going to have 15 scholarships now. This is going to be the difference in my program. I could totally see Adam Fisher saying, like, I know that we can use 15 scholarships. I'm happy with 11 or 12 as long as they all know their roles. I don't know how you guys feel like Diane would feel about this. I don't think it's anything we've asked her about specifically, but
No, it's not something we've asked about specifically. I think I'd feel similar to the way, like for Diane, that Adam would feel. I mean, I think maybe they'd use an extra one for like a developmental reason for someone like to take a chance on to like develop within the program.
yeah.
But I don't think they'd use she'd use all 15 to like for the sake of using all 15. I think it'd have to be someone that like you think like you can use either for developmental reasons or stuff like that. But I don't think they'd just jump to using 15.
Yeah,
Just
it's an interesting question. Kyle, think the same thing for football. Again, we haven't talked to Keeler about this, but I don't know. I kind of feel like
I think they're gonna pretty much stick around 85. I think it's a similar thing where like I don't think you go into it as a program like Temple where you're like, now we're gonna sponsor 105, we're gonna go from here. I think it just gives you a little bit of flexibility where you go, we're at 85. There's this late bloomer that we really, really like. He needs a scholarship. Oh, we can go up to 86 this year. Like I think there's some flexibility there, but I think it's 85 is gonna be kind of the baseline.
Couple more questions to get to here. Temple fan Al is the screen name for a message board. Has Temple ever finished the season undefeated at home, and will they do it this year? It's almost as if it's not being talked about enough by the school.
You know what's funny is people. This is not to reflect on them. It's wild how quickly people forget. They won 26 straight games at home under Dunphy at one point. They went 2 years without losing at home.
Yeah.
Like including that entire 2010, 2011 season, they went undefeated at home. But it started in like 2009. They got the crap kicked out of them by Kansas by like 30 points at home.
That was that game I was talking about with Khalif. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they didn't lose at home for 2 more years. So like, yeah, I agree. Like, I feel like it should be hammered home maybe a little more or advertised a little more that hey, Lady Core Center, they're 8-0 or whatever they are this year. But yeah, they went 2 years without losing at home at one point.
I feel like they've put out a couple graphics here and there, but
Nothing, anything too crazy though.
I don't know how much of that is like the coaches saying like, well, that's nice. They talk about it. They talk about it in post game press conferences. We want to protect our home floor. We take pride in that, but I'm sure they're just as concerned with, hey, it would be even nicer if we could grab a couple meaningful wins on the road as well.
From January 3rd, 2010 through January 7th, 2012, they did not lose a single game.
Yeah, pretty impressive stretch. Yeah. Last one here is from our buddy Declan Landis. This was from 2 weeks ago. We forgot to answer it.
Yeah.
And then we forgot last week. Oh, I'm sorry, buddy.
Did he let you guys know that you didn't answer it?
He let me know.
He
Yeah.
complained this week, right?
Because he complained 2 weeks ago. But I told him, I was like, oh, you didn't get it in time, and then you went at him with like throwing me under their bus on Twitter.
I think he did get it in time though. And we just
we just missed it.
We just didn't do it. So
and then this last week we just forgot, and I went out of my way and told him, I was like, oh, we completely forgot to do the question.
All right, so Declan's Twitter question here. Longtime listener, first time caller. While I won't weigh in on the honor around this date hosting situation, I appreciate you guys putting together quality content for my commutes. My question, if you had to share a train to work with a whole Temple team, who would it be?
I researched this. I have answered a legitimate answer.
You want to lead us off, or you want to hit fifth in lineup here?
I'm gonna go first. I'm like a Ronald Acuna. I'm like a power hitting leadoff guy. Like just get out there. The SEPTA Silverliner 5s, which is that's the cars that they use. That seats 110 people per car, like around that. I want as few people as possible on my morning. So what I did was I found the smallest Temple team. The women's cross country team has 6 people on it. So 6 people plus me, 7 out of 110 seats. I'm sitting far front. I will give my RBF, my resting face, where they will sit far back. I'll never interact with them. It'll be the most pleasant commute in the world.
RKF, resting Kyle face.
So wait, Kyle, you don't want to interact with them at all?
On my way to work, my commute to work, if I had to do that 5 days a week, no. I want to put my headphones in. I want to dissociate for however long it is. I want to wake up there. Like, no, why would I want to interact with them?
That'd also just be like, if you think about doing that for every day for the rest of your life, you can never.
It's just the commute to and from work. Here's the thing. Here's something that
I love
this. I'll preface this by saying this is someone I've been in the workforce, for a long time now, and you haven't gotten there yet. I don't need to get my social interactions from work. Like I don't. Like I have such a finite amount of time that I can be pleasant with coworkers. I can be friendly acquaintances with them. I don't need to be going out with people after work to go get beers and get my social cup refilled. I don't need that. I don't need it on the commute either. I want to just put on my podcast, zoning out, look at this town I'm going through, and I get to my destination.
I understand.
7 out of 110 seats.
I understand that. I do. But I think because Declan's commute is an hour and a half both ways. So that's 3 hours of your day.
What you were telling me.
That's pure bliss. That's
not the length of the commute.
I'm with Kyle on this where like you get to decompress.
If I had an hour, if I had a 3 hour commute, like 3 hours of the day I'm commuting, and some dude's just talking to me like, well, I can't believe conditioning was so hard yesterday and blah, blah. I will lose my mind and we won't make it to Philly. The train will derail.
Jesus. Are you like Bruce Willis in what was the second M. Night Shyamalan movie? Unbreakable?
Unbreakable. Okay.
Yes. Where Bruce Willis is sitting next to someone and she's an agent. She says, I'm representing a football player from Temple. So a little bit of Temple there. Anyway, but yeah, that train derails.
I get hurt. Yeah. Actively don't want social interactions on public
transit. Just fair. You're right, Kyle.
I love that answer. Probably not what Declan was looking for, but I hear you on that. Like it is a blissful time to be able to just zone out, listen to some music. Johnny, we'll go to you because it sounds like you want. Kyle's not wrong. You're not wrong. It sounds like you want fellowship on this train.
Yeah, I do. I think if I'm like, I hate riding trains. So if there's any way that I could just like enjoy it in any way.
Or do you get scared, or you just hate?
Why do
No,
you
I
hate
just
running
hate
trains?
trains. Like I just don't.
What do you
like-
have? What do you hate about trains?
Oh, I just hate public transit. Like period.
Let's delve into this. Let's peel back the layers. What do you hate about public transit?
It's just not fun. Like I don't know. I don't think I have to really defend this at all. I think
Do
it's
you-
a
but do you
popular
envision-
You
opinion.
don't have to defend it. You don't have to defend it. I am
Is
here.
this not a popular opinion?
Do you envision in this scenario that you're going to get the best of people? Like they also don't want to be on public transit. You're not going to get the glammed up, I'm ready to talk version of people. You're going to get the annoying people, the annoying version of people.
That's also fair. I
So
think
Kyle's going to be on like a charter setup type of situation with the women's cross country team where he's got leg room. He can fall asleep if he needs to.
I'll
What
tell
are
you
you
this,
looking?
if they gave me the option, I would actively drive the train instead of having to interact with people on the train. If they were like, you can either
Dr.
work
Kyle.
and not have to talk to people, I'd be like, I'll do that. Conductor Kyle, let's go.
Would you wear like a little engineer's hat and like say choo choo and stuff like that?
All I'll say is it won't take 4 stops for me to realize that a train's on fire. I'm just saying, SEPTA, come hire me.
You know what? I'm obviously he's okay. That is Declan's train line that he takes home, the one that burst into flames in Delaware County. The one that was heading
They
south.
said for 4 stops, they were like pressing the button of like, there's smoke on this train, there's fire on this train, and the conductor is
Yes.
just sitting there playing Candy Crush.
Declan, I love you. You're listening to this. I know you are. When that happened last week, I said to Chell, "Oh my God, I need to check on Declan." She said, Chelsea told me, she's like, everyone was evacuated safely. And I forgot. I should have at least followed up with them, but hey, was that your train? And I never did.
I assumed he was somehow responsible. So I didn't want to draw attention to it. If he was
Declan just
somehow
crossing
separate.
wires on SEPTA. Is this bad? Is this exit sign on fire? Yeah. But so Kyle just wants his space. You, Johnny, what do you want on this train? Which team do you want to be hanging
I
out?
want camaraderie, fun, engaging conversations. I'm gonna do the women's basketball team with the coaches included.
Mhm.
I would sit there for hours and talk to Coach Rich. The rest of the coaching staff, I think, would also be fun to be around. The players as well. I would enjoy that a lot.
You're assuming she'd want to talk to you for that long?
Okay, Kyle.
She might also just want to commute. She's like, guess what? I gotta go get
Okay,
this.
and that's
I gotta
fine.
go run practice.
Actually,
I gotta run
Every day
practice.
has to
I gotta
be like
recruit.
that. But I just
I gotta
I
recruit.
want
I
the
got a
option.
budget meeting at 3, and I got Johnny over there be like, "How you guys gonna break Memphis' 3 zone?" Like,
No, I want the option there. I'm not saying every day has to be that. I'm
What
saying
if
the
every
option is
what if-
there. You are closed off. You have no how are you going to interact with the women's cross country team? Kyle?
I'm
gotta
not.
say-
That is literally the point.
But like every day for the rest of your life, that's insane.
Oh no! If only I had a device in my hand that allows me to interact with people.
Okay, Kyle.
I'd
What
still
if-
just do this. I'll just text you. I'm like,
Okay.
Jesus Christ, this dude next to me won't shut up about the women's basketball team. And
What
I'm
if
like,
you-
oh crap, this is one of the 17 group messages I'm on with Johnny. Is he on this one?
What if you're sitting next to Diane and every response to your question to her is yeah, and she's just trying to shrug you away and she just keeps saying
See,
yeah.
I think you guys are not getting the point. Like, I'm not gonna be that guy that sits next to you. Hey, what do you think about this? Hey, what do you? I'm just saying, like, I want the option there. It
Mm.
has to happen.
I get it. I
fluently.
get. Like I said, you're not wrong. Kyle's not wrong.
Everybody else go, please. Please.
Johnny's burnt out. It's just a bit. It's just a bit. I'm not burnt out.
I've gotten better with not taking things personally.
I'm not
don't
taking
take
this
this
personally.
heavily at all.
I had class in 4 minutes.
Ooh, Ryan.
All right. Speed run.
I would also dig like camaraderie, everything. Women's basketball team, coach included. I want to chop it up with Miles. He's the same age as my older brother. Like they're both 20. They're both in their late 20s. So it reminds me of talking to my older brother Jay. I just want to chop it up with him like an hour for an hour and a half. Honestly, like that would be dope.
Yeah.
Colin.
I'm on the fence of both sides for Kyle and Johnny here. I'm gonna also say the women's basketball team. Again, I'm gonna go with you guys. They're awesome. They're all so cool. The option is there. I'm also not the biggest fan of talking to people on public transportation, but
You just have to have the option there.
that's what I'm saying. I'll have the option there.
Yeah.
So
I
I'll
think
go
it's a
with
shame that
basketball
Johnny
team.
has hogged everybody's time on this question.
I think it is a shame.
It really is a shame. Man. I can't believe you guys let me talk for so long.
I love you, buddy. This is like the far opposite end of the spectrum for Kyle. If we can be spaced out across multiple trains, I'm picking football because we have a lot of people to get to know. And I want to pick KC's brain a little bit more. I want to talk to the new coaches. I agree with Kyle. As much as I can be guilty of telling long stories or listening to long stories, I do like a good I haven't taken the train to work in I don't know how long, but like it is nice to be able to just listen to music and zone out and like have that time. But once you either get home or you get into work and it's like go, go, go. I appreciate where Kyle's coming from on that, but I would pick football because there's so many new people to get to know. So
that's fair.
Johnny has to get to class. He's got a bit of a scowl on his face right now.
Not.
Yeah, you do.
Why are you?
You're upset with
you're
all of us.
gonna make me seem like I'm this bitter human being.
Do you think you became meaner when you shaved your beard?
Ooh,
That's a
no,
great question.
I don't think so.
We'll talk about that on next week. Anyway,
Someone make that the mailbag.
well, you got to get to class in 4 weeks. 4 minutes. If you didn't have to get, it's probably 2 minutes. Oh, excuse me. Time's ticking. Anyway, thank you all for joining us for another episode. We will hopefully have a nicer, kinder Johnny Swislak next week. What his facial hair will be looking like, we don't know. But hey,
His heart grew 3 sizes that day.
and we'll feast and we'll feast and we'll feast. Carve the roast beast. Anyway, that was my Dr. Seuss voice. We can cut that if you want. Thanks for listening, everybody. Maybe we'll see you at the parade. Talk to you next week.